Hello, I'm Lori Pine, the Joy CEO, and today we are talking about how to command the room. You have a big presentation, you're part of a meeting, you have something important to say, a point to make, a part of the business to move forward, and you want to make sure that you nail your part. But here's the thing. You're not going in as your best self. So imagine this. Your iPhone hits red and you don't debate it. It's not up for question. You actually plug your phone in and you charge it. But what happens when it's you? When it's you who's on red? You debate it. You vacillate. You think, no, I don't need to take time and charge myself, recharge myself. I can just push through. I can just suck it up. And so we end up walking into critical rooms with highly visible audiences at maybe a 3% battery charge, maybe a 10% battery charge. And we wonder why our voice shakes, why our message might ramble on, why we might repeat ourselves, or even worse, why our presence might shrink. So today, we are going to plug in. We are going to talk about ways where you can actually command the room and how joy is the superpower to help you do that, how it will fuel your confidence, and how you can command this room without overperforming or pretending. So this is the real stuff that leaders are made of. You cannot pour from an empty cup, says the old adage, and you certainly can't lead from a drained or frazzled nervous system. Yet many of us try to do that. I have been so guilty of that. I didn't give myself enough space or enough time in between meetings, in between flights, in between dropping kids off and all of the antics with morning routines. And so when I talk about joy, I am not talking about fluff. I am talking about sustenance that is actually going to be the difference between your battery being on red and your battery being on green. It's the elements that are going to steady your voice, sharpen your choices, and really help you become this magnetic force when you walk into a room. And I know that you want to be all of those things if you're not already. So let's build your charge before you speak routine. Like imagine a Tesla charging station. This is what you need to do before you walk into a room that really matters and speak to people who are making judgments and discernments about you, your career, and your performance, whether they mean to or not. So the stakes are high, and let's prepare you for these sorts of meetings when they matter most. Okay, part one. This is why confidence drops when your battery drops. When you are on red, there are three things that are going to really indicate why your confidence is about to wobble. One, you have low energy. You're maybe physically depleted, lack of sleep. You're not breathing because you're so nervous about this upcoming meeting. Literally, if the human body did not breathe on its own, I think that we would forget to do it. And three, you may not be hydrated enough. Do you know that there's a study that says 80% of illnesses can be improved with proper hydration? That is remarkable. And that doesn't mean your energy drinks or your drinks with sugar. It means water, properly hydrating yourself. 2, you are overloaded. I mean, how many of us can readily admit we are overloaded? There are too many tabs open in our brain, and we're not clear on what the one thing is we should be focused on. Even if we know the one thing we should be focused on in this meeting that we're going into, we can get very distracted by the many topics we want to cover, the many points we want to make, and that becomes really confusing, and it discredits our expertise. And so we want to get really clear and break free from that overload so that we can whittle it all down and have a really clear focus. And the third one is we're carrying around other people's stuff, other people's emotions, other people's expectations, all the stuff that is outside of our hula hoop. You'll often hear me talk about the hula hoop. If you're new to my podcast, the hula hoop is this idea that what's inside is us, and we only control us. What's outside is pretty much everything else, and we don't control that. So if you're carrying around other people's stuff, that is outside of the hula hoop, and you don't get to control that. Can you empathize? Yes. Can you love them? Yes. But carry it around, have it ruin your day, that might not be the best approach. So joy can counter each one of these, low energy, overload, and other people's stuff, by really reclaiming what's yours, restoring your energy, narrowing your focus, and helping you focus on what matters, and then restoring you to what's inside your control, what's inside the hula hoop. So if we were to do a quick check right now, if you were to scan your body and your internal battery had a color, would you be green, yellow, or red? What do you think? What would you be? All right. Part 2, I'm going to take you through what I think can be this pre-game warm-up before a big meeting. You want to command the room, and walking in there, ice cold, likely having come from another meeting, is not your best approach. When I played college sports, we did not go from one high-level game to another high-level game. We had a week's rest in between. And then before each big game, we had a pregame warm-up. And so you need a pregame warm-up before you're going into high-stakes meetings. So 1, you can start with some breath work. You're like, Lori, I don't have time for breath work. That sounds absolutely ludicrous. But here's the thing. Breath work is known to bring down any anxiety you have. It actually helps you get back into your body, and it will remind you of what it is that is important and the points that you want to make. It's a calibration for your whole nervous system. So you just want to do 5 rounds of 4, 2, 6. Inhale to a count of 4, hold for 2, and exhale for 6. This is going to slow you down. And if you could do 6 of these breaths per minute, you're just going to know that this could boost your heart rate variability and the body's calm, steady reflexes. And going into a high stakes meeting, you want as much of that calm as possible. Because what this is going to translate to is a steadier voice and clearer thinking. Okay, now imagine you're feeling extra amped up for this meeting. The last thing you want to do is have an energy drink or even an extra cup of coffee. What you really want to be able to do is have a super extra long what they call a physiological sigh, more breath work, where you're going to double the inhale through the nose, long exhale out through the mouth, and then return to the 4-2-6. Again, you want to get back in your body. And then if you can drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, and just plant your feet. Just plant your feet wherever you are doing this, whether you're in your car, whether you're in the bathroom, whether you're in your office with the door closed. Plant your feet. Get back in your body. Let everything just kind of relax. And then you want to give yourself a cue, like a little micro smile, when maybe you're going to say the word joy. Maybe you're going to say the word epic. Maybe you have a word that's just going to bring you into what you want to accomplish in this meeting. And then a reminder that there's data, there's statistics and science around 5 minutes of structured breaths beats white knuckling it every single time. 5 minutes of breathing will beat white knuckling it every time. And you can literally change your state of being, even if you're on a really tight calendar. Even if you don't think you have time to do this, you can sneak away into any nook or cranny and do this and really free yourself. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is kind of this belief statement. You know, affirmations are known to be incredibly powerful. So just knowing that you are charged with power and conviction, that you know your stuff, and that your presence is the point. You want to be present. You know the information. You know the material. What you want to be able to do is to provide the value. And then in your head, if you could just have a few things that you want to make sure that you're able to communicate. One outcome. So if nothing else, they're going to walk away with. What is it you want them to walk away with in this meeting, in this room that you're commanding? One headline. In 10 words, this is about. And what is it that this is about? This topic that you are a subject matter expert on, that you are informing other people in your company or your business or your area of expertise about. And then one ask. I need a yes on or alignment on. And letting people know right up front what it is that you seek to accomplish. Once they're aware of that, once they have that cue, they're going to look for ways to support you. That's just human nature. And then the third part is being present. How can you use your voice and how can you visually indicate that you are present? So say your first sentence out loud, slowly, once. This is, remember, we are in the prep. You are still in the bathroom, the car, or in the nook or cranny of your office. So say it out loud. I just recently did a speaker training and they gave us a lot of tools to do exactly this. How to warm up your voice, how to warm up your tongue, or some of the exercises that we practiced. Did we all think we looked foolish? Well, yes. But when an entire room of grown adults is doing it, nobody looks foolish because we're all doing it. So they were exercises like literally stick your tongue out and then just let it hang there. And then try to talk so that you're warming it up. We literally had drool running down our chins, but we were much more articulate when we were done because all those millions of muscles in our tongue were all warmed up. So try that. Give it a go. Choose a physical anchor. 2 fingers on a card, a thumb to index tap, just somewhere to put your body, somewhere to put your hands, somewhere you know that you are grounded. And then picture the room's faces softening as you begin. And imagine people nodding and mirroring back to you that they understand what you're saying. That visual can be really powerful. Again, much like when I was playing college sports, we would visualize scoring a goal, visualize carrying the ball down the field. We spent hours doing that. And then lo and behold, as though it was some kind of magic, that exact scenario would play out in that game that weekend. So remember, as you're going in, you want to go in with a fully green battery, a clear message, and strength to communicate that message. And so being able to kind of have that as a mantra. All right, part 3, telling your story as a story. Now, we all have data to communicate. We all have business facts to communicate. But when you can tell it in a compelling way that actually brings about a movement, people remember the story. So one of the best examples that I can think of that anybody who listens to this podcast can relate to is from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. And James Clear opens that book with a story about the British cycling team and how they were terrible. They weren't winning. And then they got a new coach. And the new coach came in and essentially dissected every part of their movement, their sleep, their pedals, the inside of the box truck that moved the bikes. And he was aiming to make a 1% improvement. He wasn't trying to just come in and improve everything all at once overnight. And at the end of the story, he was able to get this team to a national championship and then to multiple gold medals. And the point that James Clear was trying to make is 1% improvements equals a 37% improvement at the end of the year. And so while we sometimes think in our haste to want to make a big splash and a big improvement, and we want it done by next month, the real gains come in these micro improvements of 1% that end up being 37% in just a short 12 months, if we have the patience to execute against them. So imagine you could tell a story like that about your business, about your slide, about the case you're trying to make. And you could tell it in a way that is so compelling. So funny story, I have a very good friend who is a CFO, and she and I just recently caught up, and she is taking an improv class in order to become a better storyteller of the numbers. Why? Because numbers and data can be boring. She sometimes stands up there trying to communicate these P&L sheets and people's eyes gloss over. And she wants to be able to tell these numbers in a way that actually get people engaged and get them to take action on the business. And so an improv class has helped her to invite some comedy and some lightheartedness. And lo and behold, it's changing how she presents, how she commands the room, and how she's received by her company. So if all else fails, an improv class could be in your future. Okay. Inside the room, you want to be able to command without force. You want to be able to be your natural self. So open with the outcome. Our goal for the next however many minutes is let people know what your goal is. Own your pace. If you speed up and start to get nervous and your voice is elevating and you have a high pitch, just take a pause. Take a sip of water. Restart with whatever the headline is. Okay, so we're talking about how to, and just keep going from there. Do a hula hoop check-in. you know, it's important to finish this thought we're on before we move to another topic. So let's just park that topic that you're bringing up and I'll come back to it. But it's really important to finish this one topic that we're on in the event that somebody really wants to divert the attention. And then ways to signal confident presence. Instead of fidgeting, try to help yourself be still. It's easy to get in front of a room and to sway. Plant your feet on the ground. It's easy to have filler words, to say, like, you know what I mean, right? Use silence. Skip over those words. And then really try to make eye contact. Look at people. Engage people. And then language that will really land for you. Here's the decision that's in front of us. The risk I want to neutralize is, what I'm asking for today is, if we're aligned, then the next step is, and then we get to the next part, which is part 5, after the room. You've left the meeting, you've nailed it, you've done what you needed to do, you left with the outcome, maybe not that you wanted, maybe not that you expected, but you left with a great outcome. And now you want to lock in that momentum. So a 90-second recap email needs to be sent out almost immediately. Do not wait till the next day. Do not wait for 2 days. Immediately send out a recap email. It should only take 90 seconds. You want a headline, you want the decision, and you want next steps, who the owner is, and what the date is. Again, 90 seconds. Then you want a 2-line self-debrief. What charged you? You want to be able to self-reflect so you know what really charged you and where did you get drained in the process of this presentation. And then you want a celebration. We don't celebrate near enough. We're moving on to the next task. So before you move on to the next task or the next meeting, a micro celebration, name one win out loud. What one thing, maybe 2 things, came out of this meeting that was a really big win? Because joy compounds when it's witnessed and shared. So name a win and share it. Share it with the team, share it with your manager, share it with your coach, share it with your sponsor, mentor, share it. All right, part 6. This is our last part. When you are on red and you want to get to green, there is a rescue that needs to happen. But sometimes you're at 3% and you literally cannot be rescued. You cannot be plugged in. So what do? 1 sip, 1 breath, 1 sentence. You need to find some water to drink, do a single 4 breaths in, hold for 2, exhale for 6, and then say your headline. Say, what's the thing that I need to get accomplished in this meeting? Because let's face it, sometimes we are going back to back to back to back meetings, and you're not going to have a chance to regroup. You're not going to have a chance to do a pregame. So when those times come up and you are on red, this will help. The second thing you can do is reduce the scope by 50%. If you have 14 tabs open in your head, do your best to mentally close at least half of them. And let's just talk about the one essential impact you want to make in this meeting, and that you will follow up with the details by the end of the day. And then borrow belief. Sometimes we need to borrow belief. And just picture one person who loves you and imagine that they're nodding and cheering you on, and put them in the room with you and trust that you are being cheered on in this room, in this meeting, even when it feels like it might not be happening. All right. In closing, to command the room, just really start from the inside. What needs to change in me today? That's what's inside the hula hoop. So is it your battery? Is it your work? Is it what you're trying to communicate? Or is it the boundaries you're holding? Pick one and change it before the next meeting. And then you can do a little micro audit. How are you doing with your battery? Are you on green or are you on red? How are you doing with your brief and the things you're trying to communicate? Do you know your outcome? Do you know your headline? Do you know what you're asking for going into this meeting? And then how are your boundaries? Are you carrying around other people's stuff? Is there stuff on the inside of your hula hoop that just doesn't belong there? And it certainly doesn't belong there for the purposes of a meeting, not where you need to be the best version of yourself. So, if you want to command a room, I suggest that you do the best you can to plug in that battery. It is essential. We all know that if your phone was on red, you would find a way to get it to a charger. And the same holds true for you. You are no different, and you deserve that little extra boost that is going to get you through. And these old thoughts of telling yourself that you can just thug it out, you can just suck it up, that's really outdated, and you deserve better. I'm Lori Pine, the Joy CEO, and I'm so glad to be doing it with you. Thanks so much. Have a great day.